All right, welcome to our Week 13 Thursday night podcast. We're going to be talking some Georgia high school playoff football. We're going to make our picks of the week, pick our favorites and our underdogs, and then we're going to do a deeper dive into the Oklahoma Missouri game this weekend out of the SEC. So let's roll straight into some good Georgia high school football. Sweets, who do you want to talk this week?
So I want to talk about Colquitt County is coming up to Grayson to face the number three in the country, Grayson Rams. Grayson's 11-0, Colquitt's 9-2. This is going to be a really good game. Grayson has a ton of talent. Tyler Atkinson is one of the top players in the country at linebacker. He's missed quite a few games this year, and he still has 77 tackles, 25 tackles for loss, and 10 sacks. And I want to say that might be in like 6 or 7 games is all. So the numbers that he's putting up are insane. And Grayson's just a factory. They won state last year in an upset over Milton, but they've over Carrollton actually, but they've just been fantastic this year and tough to beat. Colquitt is led by running back Jai Lamar, who was a Georgia commit. And then I think Georgia backed off of him because he had some troubles. He missed about 3 or 4 weeks during the season. He had some discipline issues down there that they were working through. So he was back and played for them last week. He in their first playoff game, he rushed for over 100 yards and had a couple touchdowns. So that was big for them. I think it's going to be a really good game. I think Grayson is the best team in the state. They might be the best team in the country. I think they win the game, but I think Colquitt puts up a battle. I'm going to go ahead and take Grayson 31-21. And it should be a lot of fun. And that game is going to be televised on Channel 46 here in the Atlanta area and Peachtree Sports Network. So if you want to see a really good high school football game, people, I'd recommend you tune in for that one. Where are you going tomorrow night, Kev?
So I'm going to stay local, not too far from me, and go with Carrollton and Harrison. So both these teams have really good offenses. Harrison's only scored below 30 points twice, and they scored in the mid 20s in those games. And they lost one game this year to McEachern. They're 10-1. They lost that game 48-21. Scored over 30 every game. The interesting thing about Carrollton this year, Carrollton's been known for their offense for the last 3 or 4 years, but defensively they've been good this year. They've not given up 30 points in one game this year. So that's going to be the interesting thing to me is can Harrison put 30 points on the board against Carrollton? It'll take that if they're going to stay in the game. Harrison had a big win last week over Marietta. Aiden Watson, their quarterback, he's a dual threat guy. He ran for 180 and threw for right at 200 last week, and he's the key to their team. And they've got to have a good game from him. And then when you flip it over to Carrollton, they're led by Ryan Mosley, the Georgia commit, wide receiver. He can play defensive back also. Um, most list him as a DB in college, but he could end up as a wide receiver also. He had over 100 yards receiving last week. Cam Wood, the running back, had 133 yards. Also, too, Carrollton, they've got great facilities and they put money into their program. And that's also shown by their head coach, Joey King. Has played coach in Georgia, making a little over 180 a year. And that there could be some incentives on top of that. He's also the highest paid. Yeah, we know he gets some extra there from Southfire. He's also the highest paid salaried coach per record in the country. Now, you could have private schools that don't have to list their pay that might be on top of him. But again, though, he, 2 of the last 3 years he's been to finals, hadn't had that game where he's won the championship. I think it'd be really interesting if they would get in the game again this year with Grayson. Grayson's really good. Their defense, like you mentioned, is great. Carrollton and Harrison would be a good game. It could be an explosive game where both offenses get in the 30s and make it interesting. The game is at Carrollton. I'm going to take Carrollton to win the game 38-23. Hey, if Aiden Watson gets hot for Harrison, he might make it interesting.
What do you got for us, D-Mac?
Yeah, so no high school football for me tomorrow. Gonna go watch some LSU basketball and some minor league hockey tomorrow night. So I'll cover Louisiana high school playoff stuff next week, but we'll roll into picks of the week. So I'll get things started with my favorites and then my dogs. My two favorites that I love this week: Houston at home against TCU. They're a 1.5 point favorite. They still are not completely eliminated from the Big 12 championship game just yet, so they still have a little to fight for. And I love some of the things they're doing on offense. So give me Houston as a 1.5 point favorite, and then UNLV hosts Hawaii tomorrow night. Love UNLV as a 2.5 point favorite. I think Dan Mullen is coaching to get a bigger job again right now. So we'll see what happens with him. Those are the two favorites I like. And then for my dogs, going to Blacksburg, Virginia, give me Virginia Tech getting 18.5 from Miami. James Franklin will be in attendance. I see this as an audition for both guys who are on the coaching staff and players who are on the team at Virginia Tech to show that they've got some fight in them. I like Virginia Tech to win this game, but I think at the very least they cover 18.5. And then my last dog of the week, going down to Baton Rouge, where I'm at right now. Western Kentucky is a 21.5 point dog to the LSU Tigers. I think Western Kentucky covers this game. I could see them losing by 17, but I don't think LSU's offense can score quite enough to beat them by 22. So give me Western Kentucky. Sweets, where are you going with your picks?
So my favorite for the week is Ohio State. They're number one in the country. They're favored over Rutgers by 31.5. I think they call their shot here. They're just better than everybody else right now. Julian Sands, he's a Heisman candidate, playing fantastically. They're moving the ball up and down the field. Their defense is unbelievable, just shutting everybody down. I think that they cover the 30. They might cover that by halftime. I think that they blow doors against Rutgers. My upset pick, because I've been goaded into it since I called it the other night, is the Mercer Bears. I'm going to take Mercer plus the 27.5 over Auburn. Mercer's led by freshman quarterback Braden Atkinson, who's the number one passer in the country right now. He's got over 3,200 yards, 33 touchdowns this year, and he's also on the watch list for the Walter Camp FCS Player of the Year. On defense, they're led by Andrew Zock, who's a sophomore. He's leads the team with 18.5 tackles for loss and 11.5 sacks. So these guys are getting after it. I think they're going to go into go down to the plains and like I said, I don't think they cover. I'm calling a win for the Mercer Bears. If you want to see Auburn burn, let Mercer beat Auburn this weekend. That'll be entertaining for all of us. So where are you going, Kev?
So I'm going to stay in the ACC for the favorites. I'm picking two games that'll be competitive. But I like the favorites in the games. So first game I'm going to take is Georgia Tech Pitt. Tech's defense has been struggling lately, but they're playing at home, and every time they've played this year in a game where they've it's a very meaningful game that they've got up for, they've played well and on both sides of the ball. So I really think with a home game and this game, if they win this game, they play in the ACC championship and that Brent Key's an alum, so that's a big deal to them. Favored by 2.5. Give me Georgia Tech. I think they're going to win that game by 10 plus. And then the second game I like from a favorite standpoint, again ACC. SMU is also playing for that chance to get in that ACC championship. Home game this week against Louisville. I really think Rhett Lashley will have those guys ready, and Kevin Jennings will have a great game. So I'm going with two dual threat quarterbacks this weekend with Kevin Jennings and Haynes King. Give me SMU minus 2.5 there. The two underdogs that I like are actually SEC teams. So the first one I'm going to go to a long rivalry that is getting picked back up now that Texas is in the SEC, and that's Arkansas, Texas. Arkansas is a 9 point underdog. Arkansas might play the Philadelphia Eagles within a touchdown, but they won't win. So I think Arkansas, if they can avoid the turnovers, might pull this one off. But I definitely like Arkansas +9. Second game I like this weekend is a team that you're close to, Sweets. But I like Florida over them. They're getting 4.5 at home. And I really like Florida in the swamp getting 4.5 points. This is a game over the years that Tennessee has just not had a lot of luck going in there. I think it's been over 20 years since they won in Florida. So give me,
2003.
yeah, give me the 4.5, and I'm going to take Florida. Been other years that Tennessee's went in there with a better team and couldn't pull it off. So I think this will be the year that Florida continues that Rocky Top troll that they bring.
The last time Tennessee won in the swamp, LSU went on to win a national championship.
That ain't happening this year.
I was going to say if that's the precursor, then they've got no chance.
And LSU's only loss in '03 was to Florida at
Right.
home. That
That's right.
Yes, it
Good
was.
so
call.
that brings us to our grand finale for tonight, where we're gonna break down by position Oklahoma and Missouri. So let's get things going at the quarterback position. You know, Oklahoma has John Mateer at quarterback. Missouri, I believe, is still going to have Matt Zollers, right? I
Yes,
don't think Oprah is playing this week.
he was listed as doubtful last night, and Drinkowitz has already said Zollers is going to start.
So I'm not high on John Mateer at all. I am gonna give him the advantage in this one though. I think his ability to run the football from a field vision standpoint is what separates him from Matt Zollers right now. So I'm gonna give Oklahoma the edge at quarterback. What about you, Steve?
I'd be hard pressed to disagree with you there. Mateer was, I thought he could be in the Heisman hunt before the beginning of the season. I was really high on him. Then he got hurt, had some injury issues, but in any case, he's still better than what Mizzou's going to trot out in their freshman quarterback. So yeah, I lean Oklahoma for quarterback there. Who do you think, Kev?
Oh yeah, Mateer. We don't got to talk about this for long. Mateer's the better quarterback. Missouri just wants Zollers to not make mistakes. They got to have no turnovers to win this game.
Yeah, and then you go to the running back position, and yeah, I'll start with Oklahoma. Xavier Robinson's been playing well. Torrey Blaylock's been efficient this year. Could this be the game that Jade Knott shows up for on the on the field? I don't think he's played in 6 weeks. I don't think this is a bad running back room by any means. It definitely hasn't performed where they want it to. I do give the O line a lot of that, the reason behind the lack of success. Then you flip over to Missouri, and you've got Ahmad Hardy, who just ran for 300 last week. He is at what, like 1,400 yards on this season, having a phenomenal season. Jamal Roberts has been good, their number two guy, who's ran for, I think, right around 600. So I think this one's pretty similar to the quarterback position, maybe even more in favor of Missouri here. Their 1-2 punch is probably the best in the conference. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Missouri's 1-2 punch is the best. This is the best running game in the SEC with Missouri, with Hardy and Roberts. And if Prabula did play, he provides a little bit of running game there too. Robinson's a solid player for OU. Blaylock hasn't played as much lately. They've tried to run the ball, and they've been better in the last 3 to 4 weeks. That being said, the first 5 6 weeks of the season, this was the worst running offense in the SEC too with Oklahoma. I don't think they're the worst rushing offense now, but Missouri's got a good defense against the run. You mentioned the offensive line. I think that is the key to Oklahoma's downfall, and then again you pair that with the best running tandem in the SEC. Missouri's going to lean on that run. They did last week. Hardy ran for 300. So they're going to try to run clock, shorten this game, lean on the time of possession. OU's not good in time of possession and only had 215 yards last week total. So the game plan is going to be for Missouri to run the football. And that's what they should do. Huge advantage here. Sweets, what's your thoughts?
I agree with both you guys here, and they're led by that veteran offensive line of Mizzou's. That's where it all starts for them. So while Hardy's doing a great job running the ball, he wouldn't be doing it without that offensive line. So I think there's a big advantage there. So I lean Mizzou at running back. Um, going to receiver, Mizzou has Kevin Coleman, who has 56 catches on the year with 600 yards and one touchdown. Oklahoma's top receiver is Isaiah Satania, who has 53 catches on the year with 718 yards and five touchdowns. What do you guys think of those matchups, DMAC?
Yeah, so I like the Missouri wide receiver room. If I'm picking players to put on my football team, I like Kevin Coleman, I like Joshua Manning, I like Marquise Johnson. But I think from a performance level this year, I would give the edge to Oklahoma. I think Satanga and Dion Burks and Giovanni Gibson's now getting a little bit of playing time. I think they've actually performed a little bit better overall. I think this is a very close room with how the season's gone, but I'm gonna give Oklahoma a slight advantage here personally. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, it's a close. This is a close matchup. Because you even have Janik at tight end for Oklahoma, and you have Norwood at tight end for Missouri. So even if you take it down to the tight ends, because both those guys are key to the passing game. Um, Mateer is a better passer based on experience than Zollers. Zollers has potential in the passing game. So that makes you kind of want to lean Oklahoma. But then again, if you look at how well has Oklahoma thrown the ball over the last 4 or 5 games, they're the last month of the season they're averaging less than 200 yards passing. To me, the only guy that's been really totally consistent for Oklahoma is Sintanga, and I just think Missouri's depth at wide receiver is a little better. So that's I'm going to lean Missouri just based on the depth factor. Now that being said, Zollers and he's got to throw the ball well, and like we talked about earlier, he cannot have interceptions in this game. That's Oklahoma's defense is going to thrive off turnovers. Sweets, what's your thoughts on that group?
Yeah, I have nothing to add. I put in with everything you guys said there. Where are we going next, DMAC?
Yeah, so now we're gonna have a little fun in the tight end room. You kind of mentioned them, Kevin. You've got Jaron Kanak from Oklahoma, and then you've got Norfleet at Missouri. I'm gonna give Norfleet the slight edge here personally. I think Norfleet's I don't know. He's not the best tight end because you've got a few really good guys, but he's a top four tight end to me in the SEC. And so I'm gonna give him the edge, but Kanak's been really good this year too. But I just lean Missouri a little bit here. What about you, Sweets?
Yeah, I agree. I like Norfleet. He's a prototypical tight end. He's like 6'6", 260. He's just a big target. Yeah, I agree. I like of both teams. That's my favorite right there is Norfleet. What do you think, Kev? You got anything to add on the tight ends exclusively?
Yeah, so I think Norfleet's the more talented player, and I think Missouri should use him more. But just because I think Kanak has been the guy that bails Mateer out sometimes, and Mateer really looks to him. I think the more effective guy in the game will be Kanak. But if you just wanted upside, who can play in the NFL and have an NFL career, that would be Norfleet. I just think Kanak will be important to this game in the passing game for Oklahoma.
And I know we all kind of talked O line when we were talking run game. Yeah, I lean Mizzou heavy here. I know both of you guys do. Kevin, anything to add on the O line before we move to defense?
No, other than just again, this is a heavy lean for me for Missouri. Much better in the running game, protecting the passer. Missouri.
What about you, Sweets?
Same thing. I love Caden Green at left guard. I just think they're just the better line all the way across, and that's why Hardy's been able to run like he has all year. So give me Mizzou there.
Yeah, I agree. So that brings us to defense. And I broke down defensive line into your edge rushers and your defensive line nose tackles as well. So I'll get started with Oklahoma's defensive ends. You've got R. Mason Thomas, Marvin Jones Jr., Taylor Wine is technically an edge guy, I think, even though I think he's played a little inside. And then you go over to Missouri, and you get Zion Young, Damon Wilson, Darius Smith would kind of be their top three. I like what Mizzou does as a whole on defense. But I think I definitely lean Oklahoma here. Our Mason Thomas has been a game changer. I know he's trending towards playing this week, I think. I haven't checked it tonight, but I think he was elevated to questionable yesterday, if I remember correctly. Marvin Jones has been good. Taylor Wine's been playing really good football. So I'm going to give Oklahoma the edge at defensive end. What do you think, Kevin?
So I think it all is in that R. Mason Thomas does he play? He is actually still listed as questionable tonight. If R. Mason Thomas plays, then I definitely go Oklahoma. You mentioned Taylor Wine. He's had a good year. He's someone that I think could end up third team All SEC. He's very consistent in that he's going to get a couple of tackles for loss every game. Um, Talent wise, Missouri is good at end. So I'm going to break it like this: if R. Mason Thomas plays, it's advantage Oklahoma. If he doesn't play, I'm going to call it neutral. Sweets, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, listen, Oklahoma across the defensive line, they're fourth in the country, allowing 82 yards a game rushing, or number two in the country with 37 sacks, first in the country with 102 tackles for loss, and their pressure rate is 40.7, which is fourth in the country. There, it's just a dominant front. I think Oklahoma has a decided edge along the defensive front there.
Yeah, so that brings us to the defensive tackle, nose tackle position. Starting with Oklahoma, they've got Jaden Jackson, Demonic Williams, David Stone, and Grayson Halton. But then you flip over to Mizzou, and I really like the guys who play in the middle of the defensive line for Mizzou. You've got Chris McClellan, Marquise Gracial, Sterling Webb's been having a great season. Um, Chris McClellan had a heck of a game last week, a couple sacks. I'm actually gonna lean on the interior of the defensive line and give it to Missouri in this battle. I think if you go full depth, Oklahoma probably has a little bit more because they're rotating 4, 5, 6 guys in there. But nobody stands out to me at the tackle position as being a true game changer as to where, Sterling Webb's had some big moments, and so has Chris McClellan this year. So give me the Mizzou defensive tackles and nose tackles. What do you think, Sweets?
I'm with you, and they also have redshirt junior Marquise Graciel. So I like Mizzou at defensive tackle. Just that position, but I kind of put it all together on the defensive line, and Oklahoma's defensive line is just hell. They're great defensive line. What are your thoughts, Kev?
Yeah. So again, I going back to my comment about wide receiver. To me, I think the depth factor. I've just got to go Oklahoma at tackle, at D tackle, just because of the depth factor. Um, Look, both these teams' front seven are in the top half of the SEC. Probably both front sevens are in the top four of the SEC. But there's no better defensive tackle room in the nation, in my opinion, than what Oklahoma brings. So I got to go D tackle there for Oklahoma.
Yeah, so that brings us to linebackers. Oklahoma's got Kip Lewis, who's having a great year. Colby McKenzie, Owen Heineck, who has been, in my opinion, a pretty big surprise for them. The way that he's been able to play in his rotational piece and really shine. Sammy Amosigo has been good for him, but Heineck has really been a huge bright spot for them, playing the role that he's playing. Then you look over at Missouri, and they've got Josiah Trotter, Tristan Newsome, Khalil Jacobs has been really good this year, and Nicholas Rodriguez is kind of rounds out their rotation. This one's a little bit tough for me. Oklahoma definitely has a little more star power. Um, but I'd say two of my favorite linebackers this year have been Khalil Jacobs and Owen Heineck. So guy from each team, but I'll give Oklahoma the bump here. But also, I really do like the Missouri linebacker room. But with Kip Lewis, he's kind of a little bit of the separation factor for me here. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, again, I think just the overall depth, again, I think that's where the advantage goes. Oklahoma's got four linebackers that they play a lot. Samuel Omosuago is not necessarily a starter, but he plays the reps to be a starter. And Heineke's been good. McKenzie's been good. They're just really good and they're deep across that front. Missouri's linebackers are good and effective, like we talked about. This is a good front seven on both sides. But I just got to go again depth. I got to go Oklahoma here. Sweet, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, this is a pretty even matchup for me. I really like Josiah Trotter at linebacker for Missouri, but Oklahoma's got Kip Lewis as well as Kendall Daniels there, and it's a pretty even matchup for me. I'm going to go ahead and call this one a draw at linebacker. If I have to pick somebody though, I'd take Mizzou. I really like Trotter a lot. I think he's going to be a decent pro player too. That takes us to the secondary. D Mac, lead us off, baby.
Yeah, let's go cornerback room. Looking at Oklahoma, yeah, you've got Cortland Guillory, who's a freshman, and then you've got Gentry Williams, who's playing that other side at corner. When you look over at Missouri, you've got Dre Norwood and Toriano Pride. If I'm picking a cornerback room, I'm taking Mizzou here. Pride's playing really good football. Had a pick six last week, and Dre Norwood's been really effective. I think he has like 9 pass deflections this year, so he's playing really good football. So give me Mizzou at the cornerback spot. What do you think, Sweets?
Yeah, I'm with you. I pardon me. I really like Drayden Norwood at cornerback. Oklahoma has Gentry Williams. He's been fighting through injuries. Eli Bourne, Cortland Guillory. Well, I like Mizzou a little better at cornerback. It's not as big a match because I don't know that Mateer's going to go crazy throwing the ball, but I like Mizzou's cornerback room better than Oklahoma's. Who do you like, Kev?
Yeah, I think this is a big advantage to Missouri. Gentry Williams is listed as questionable. Guillory has been picked on at times this year for Oklahoma. Again, I don't know if Zollers can take advantage of it. They have the talent at wide receiver to do that, and if they can have some success running the ball, maybe that opens up some play action to where they can throw the ball against Oklahoma. But just the matchup alone, I go heavy Missouri here.
Yeah, and I did for Oklahoma. I left out Eli Bowen, who had a huge game last week as well. So you got to throw him in, but I still definitely lean Mizzou here. So that brings us to the safety position, and I'll start with Oklahoma. You've got Peyton Bowen, Robert Spears Jennings, who is having a great season. Then your depth pieces are Jaden Hardy, who looked good last week, and then Michael Boganowski, who has been phenomenal on special teams for him. He's kind of found his footing as a rotational piece. But when you flip over to Missouri, Jalen Catalon has been good. Marvin Burks Jr., led the team in tackles last week, had a pick six. You've got Dalen Carnell. You've got Santana Banner. I actually, as a whole, I like the Missouri safety room a little bit more. Um, I do think that Robert Spears Jennings is probably the best safety on the field in this game, but I really like the combination of Catalan and Marvin Burks out there. So I'm going to give this one to Missouri as well. Who do you like, Sweets?
I agree with you, and I like Burks a lot. Bone was a good catch too. But and Peyton Bone as well. Listen, I remember when LSU was recruiting him heavily. But I think overall you give the nod to Mizzou here. And it's funny as we talk about this, we it sounds like we're leaning Mizzou in a lot of these matchups. So I'm curious to see where we all lean on the prediction for the game. What are your thoughts, Gav?
I'm like, what D-Max said there, the top end talent goes to Oklahoma, but just the overall room, I think, is a slight edge to Missouri, just with a depth factor. And when you start going with the star positions and mixing that in there. I think the total secondary is a big advantage to Missouri, and which kind of really makes this defensive matchup close. And that says it also statistically. One team is 10th in the nation in defense, and the other team is 11th in the nation in defense. So Missouri, everybody knows about Oklahoma's defense. Missouri is a team that has a quality defense that people don't talk about as much, but they're legit.
And so that takes us to the final final portion of these teams, and that's going to be special teams. I'm going to start with Missouri. Robert Meyer is their kicker. He's a freshman. Um, I know Kevin Coleman's been returning some punts. I think Santega's returned a few this year, but I want to hone in on Oklahoma a little bit. Tate Sandell, and I know you'll talk about him some more, Kevin, but he's been really good this year for them in the field goal game. And then, geez, they've still got Jade Knott listed as kick returner for them. So I honestly don't know who returns kicks for Oklahoma. I would think it's probably Peyton Bowen. So I'm going to give the edge to Oklahoma here, mainly because of Tate Sandell and what he's been able to do all year. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, man, Centel. I mean, he's just been incredible. 14 out of 15 from 40 yards zone this year. So again, we've talked about him before. You get across midfield, it's 3 points. He's only missed one field goal this season. He's 21 out of 22. Like I said, 14 out of 15, but 7 out of 7 from 50 plus with a long of 55. Hasn't missed an extra point. So again, huge threat. And I think it's right there. I mean, he scored 9 points against Oklahoma. He scored 12 points against Tennessee. He's an offensive threat. That's just what it is. So you got to account for him if you're playing Oklahoma. To me, you've got to gear your defense to try to get the stop before they get to midfield. Otherwise, you can you've got the red zone inside the 20. You get him inside the 40. It's the green zone. That's what I would call it. So I would go special teams in a big way to Oklahoma just because of Tate Centel. Sweets, what's your thoughts?
I agree. He is probably the best kicker in the country. Also, they average almost 47 yards punt on for punting the ball, as well as just under 39 for a net. So those are both huge numbers in the college game. So yeah, I think Oklahoma has a decided advantage there. DMAC, what's the line on this game?
A 6.5, 7.5.
Six and a
Let
half, seven and a half.
me.
So
Six and a
so
half. Oklahoma's the favorite.
all right. So who are you picking?
So I am gonna stick with Oklahoma in this one, but it's gonna be a close game. I'm gonna go 27-24. OU gets the win. I think it's going to come down to a late field goal, probably a long one that gets made by Oklahoma. These teams were, let's see, one, two, three, four, five, six. So out of the 11 position groups we broke down, including special teams, we gave Mizzou the edge on six of them, Oklahoma the edge on five of them. But quarterback and special teams were the two we gave OU the edge on, and I think that's where the difference is in this game. If they can get inside the 40-yard line, they're going to score points unless they turn it over. Don't necessarily feel the same way about Missouri. They could be punting from the 40-yard line. They'd probably go for it in real life. But yeah, give me Oklahoma in a close one. They don't cover, but they win and keep their playoff hopes alive. What do you think, Sweets?
I like Oklahoma 23-16. I think there are a few field goals kicked in this game. Both decent defenses. Both got Oklahoma with their kicker. Yeah, 23-16 Oklahoma. So depending on whether you call it 6.5 or 7.5, that's who I take spread wise. 6.5, I'll take Oklahoma. 7.5, I'll take Mizzou. What are your thoughts, Kev?
Yeah, I'm going to go Oklahoma 23-20. But again, this is a game I could be wrong on. I'll just say that. If Missouri can play turnover free, I like them to win the game. I don't necessarily think they can do that though. I think Oklahoma will get a turnover. Sindal will score points. BMAC, like you mentioned, I could see Missouri going for it at the 40-yard line, and then that's going to flip the field. All Oklahoma needs is 20 yards, and then they put 3 points on the board. So I think you got to, if you're Missouri, you better be very conscious about how you handle field position in this game so that you don't give up points. Missouri's, and again, that's why they got to lean on that running game so much. Missouri's got to play very good in the field position side of this one, and no, they can't turn the ball over. If they do those two things, they can win. But I think Oklahoma's defense will get a turnover. Synthal will get another 9 points just on his foot. Oklahoma wins a squeaker.
Yeah, I'm with you. This is going to be a good game to watch. I know the SEC doesn't have a ton of competitive games this week. You have Kentucky, Vandy, Arkansas, Texas, Tennessee, Florida. But this is the game I'm going to be paying the most attention to this weekend. So that's a wrap for Thursday night. Final thoughts going into the weekend. So hope you guys liked the show, and we'll see you Tuesday when we go live. We'll also do our review from the week. Any big games, anything crazy happens. Maybe a team like LSU gets a new head coach over the weekend. We will be back on Sunday to go over that. So thanks for listening. We'll see you soon.